Oh, we're live. Are
Howdy,
we
this is
live?
Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Joined by a very special guest today. This is Devon from Devon Talks Tabletops, and we're here to give you a top 10 list about the top 10 board games that we like to play with kids. Devon, how are you today?
Starting right off the
Welcome
bat
back.
with
Go
Rebellion.
for it.
We're Star Wars Rebellion, right?
That's right. That is our favorite game to play with children. Nothing says great, engaging time of something that's more than an hour. Absolutely.
Just a 4-hour game with our kids where we teach them the pain of long-term strategy games.
And guerrilla tactics. Absolutely.
I don't think my son would ever play board games with me. Either that or it'd win him over. One of the two.
Is it worth the risk?
I don't know. Yeah, you're right. It's maybe not worth the risk. But I appreciate the introduction. It's always good to chat. I enjoyed our last conversation where we got some good musical recommendations on both sides. So it's been good. And I thought of you earlier today because I was playing my Spotify as a Discover Weekly, and it's gotten to the point where it knows me pretty well. So every week I feel pretty happy with a decent amount of the songs that it sends my way. So there was this one crazy string song that I was like, I need to send that to Mackenzie. It's just a cool song. It's a cool song. But no, I'm doing well, and I appreciate you bringing me on.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Devon. And if you did miss our last collaboration, I'll make sure to leave a link in the description below so you can check out our top 10 favorite soundtracks in board game. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Devon, Devon is another fellow YouTube content creator. He's got a variety of different content when it comes to reviews, unboxings, and some of my favorite things that Devon does are just conversations about game. Right before the stream, we were talking about Rebellion, we were talking about War of the Ring, and one of the videos that I actually watched recently from Devon was a reflection on him playing War for Arrakis, the new Dune game from Simon. So I had just played War of the Ring and thinking about all of these connections, and it's something I'm looking forward to now that I've played War of the Ring. So Devon, any videos that you're excited to talk about? I know that you recently just got a job with Lucky Duck Games. That's brilliant. Happy for you. That's amazing.
Thanks so much.
And
Appreciate
it. What else going on? Anything you're excited to share?
Oh goodness. Let's see. I just recently got Beast in because Studio Midhall was wanting to push their expansion. So I need to play Beast. I'm really excited about that. I love mind management, and so that's one of my favorite, hidden movement games. So I'm excited about Beast, which people continually compared it to. In terms of ones I'm wanting to get to the table as well, I've got Senjutsu here, which is a partner game that I'm doing that Lucky Duck Games is doing with Stone Sword. And then I was actually just telling you about this, but behind me on the floor is Vampire the Masquerade Chapters, which is a big game from Flyos, who is a Canadian publisher. Super excited for that. So there's a lot, but now I want to play Rebellion because you talked about Rebellion. So now that's all I want to do is just play Rebellion.
I'm sorry.
Now I have the itch.
So, going to something completely different, what we're here to do today. So whereas Rebellion may be a little bit too intense, our goal today is to share our top 10 favorite board games to play with kids. Now, these can be kids of all age groups. These can be your own kids, other people's kids. I currently don't have kids right now. These could be my nephews. These could be students that you work with, or maybe you volunteer at places. This can be any category. Devon, when you approach
I
this,
identify as a kid. Thinking? So
perfect. These are Devon's top 10 games.
Perfect. So in terms of my methodology that I was using, I was mainly thinking about with my son. So I have 3 kids, but my oldest is 9. He will be 10 soon. And he's the one that I play games with most frequently in my household. So I was trying to think of the titles that I would enjoy playing with him or have already played with him and recommend for various reasons.
All right, perfect. And then I kind of gave my spiel, sort of everything. Anytime I interact with a kid, whether it be student, my family, anybody that I just say, that's the one I'm grabbing. I'm ready to play that. We do have a couple of comments before we get into the list. Successful Geek says, is Devon really that special, though? I think he is. Grunge Life says, we've got a number 1 kids game is KDM, 100% a kids game. Absolutely. The artwork, the theme, the setting. Nothing screams kids more than Kingdom Death Monster. another good suggestion here, Twilight Imperium with 9 kids. You could definitely fill a player count with a classroom. And then lastly, we got Mr. Pilskin here. Pliskin, this is Yellow Right on Time. Favorite one is Spot It. This is a great choice. One of
Is
my
that the
favorite
dog one that just came out somewhat
that is
recently?
Spot. Spot It
That's
is
Spots.
a
Okay.
matching game. So you'll have these cards with symbols, and you're trying to match them as soon as possible. So you'll flip
Is it the you flip 2 over and try to get matches?
Yep,
Okay.
and every card has a single match with every other card in the deck, so it's a like procedurally generated game.
Is that just like a licensed version of, because that to me just sounds like a memory game.
It is called, I think it's called Dobble is the original version. It's got like a little hand on it. There's a million versions of it now. There's like Spot It Marvel, regular Spot It. We have one from the Louvre that has like all pieces of artwork from there, which is kind of
That's
neat.
cool.
So
That's
that,
cool.
I thought that was a pretty sick grab.
Yeah.
But it's an excellent vehicle. It's also really good for teaching because you can like
Yeah.
put in vocabulary and other items. So I think that's pretty cool. So I love
Nice.
Spot It. I think that's excellent. Barely missed the list. Number 7 actually. It is on my honorable mention. So thanks for mentioning it, Pliskin. Excellent.
There you go.
So before
was I supposed to make an honorable mentions list?
you don't have to. And if you can think about something, you can say
Rebellion.
it. Don't even worry
Star Wars
about it.
Rebellion. Star Wars
It'll
Rebellion.
be Star Wars Rebellion is the honorable mention. And then one last thing before we get into this video, I want to quickly feature one of our channel partners. This is Into the AM Studios. As you can see, we have a shirt from their graphic line of tees. And if you're looking to get just new t-shirts, you're feeling like you want to change up your style or something, you can support the channel and do it through Into the AM Studios. We use the code SideGame Strong for your coupon code. You get 10% off. And then it also does give us kickback for the channel. I do recommend these. I think they feel great. I think these designs are cool. And I love nautical themes in my games, which is why I'm wearing this cool one with.
I like the astronaut one.
They're pretty. There's some cool designs. So we got another one that has like a lava on it, and then one that has some Japanese themes. So I think they're pretty sweet. They do feel good, and I'm not overheating or anything. And I'm a pretty chunky guy, so that is something to be aware of. I don't feel uncomfortable in this shirt, and I think it's a pretty good recommendation there. So if you'd like to support the channel, you can do that with Into the AM Studios and use promo code SideGame Strong for 10% off your order. So that all being out of the way, our channel sponsor out there, we'll go ahead and get into the list with our number ones. Devon, let's go ahead and start. What is your number 1 board game to play with kids?
Is this number 1 or is this?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're number 5. Yeah, let's go backwards.
Okay.
You're number 5.
I ranked them, which is not something I normally do. I normally just make a list and then go through the list.
How did you rank them?
I ranked them in terms of what has, I think, been of a combination of the most interest to me and also the most engaging or effective for playing with not just my kid, but with any other kid. So my number 5 on this list is Crokinole. I love Crokinole a lot, and Avery. It's one of those games because it's like dexterity based. And because it doesn't have a ton of mechanics that are going on, you can really kind of cater it to the skill cap of whoever you're playing with. And I thoroughly enjoy playing Crokinole. Just any excuse to play it sounds good to me. And I grew up and my dad played table tennis or ping pong and regular tennis and pool. And a lot of those games, you can kind of bring your skill set to just match with whoever you're playing with if there is a little bit more inexperience. So I have been able to play Crokinole with my son and had a great time with it. So see, look at that, 8.0. I mean, it should be higher than 8.0. That's kind of offensive, to be honest. You know, that's really, really rude. But see, family, boom, family, 5. Top 5 in the family category. That's pretty good. It's in the top 100 on BGG, deservedly so.
I think you stated it well, where this is a classic parlor style game that could be just approached by anyone. And one of the biggest strengths here is the team aspect. You can pair people so that you can close that skill gap, or you could even do it 2 versus 1. I think that's a pretty fun challenge for younger kids in particular. I think that's really neat. Or vice versa, have a handicap on a person, giving them more turns, more discs. I think there's a lot of things that you can do to make it approachable for families or for kids in general.
Yeah. Yep. So I enjoyed it a lot. And it's one of those ones because doubles plays so well, you can also, have the kids on your team to where they get to play with adults rather than against adults. and so you can set it up well appropriately. So, oh man, and I mean, I just have to give a shout out to Jeremy Tracy from Tracy Boards because I love the man to death, and he makes the best boards in the business. So I've got one on my wall right there.
I would have to agree with you. We picked up one recently for our Francon tournaments that we were running here in Colorado Springs, and it was such a huge step up in quality. So I do recommend.
Awesome.
They're incredible. Like straight out the box, you're like, whoa, this is a different level. Incredible.
Yep. I mean, actually, I think one of my favorite moments of like sharing Crokinole with people was when Alex Radcliffe of Board Game Co. He already had a Crokinole board, and I was like, "Dude, this game's amazing." And then he was like, "It's good." He's like, "It's good." And then he played on a Tracy board for the first time. He's like, "Oh my god!" He's like, "I have to get this." So.
It's insane. And one of the coolest things was during that tournament we played, we had like 3, 4, 5 different boards at the same time playing, and they were all different. So it was like almost playing on different terrain. So cool.
Yep.
God, such a cool concept.
Ugh, man, I love it. Yeah, so that's my number 5. It's Crokinole. I love it.
Excellent. All right, so that is our number 5 for Devon, Crokinole. That brings us to my number 5. I think you may have seen a little bit of a preview before, just a quick misclick there. But have no fear, this game is still absolutely amazing. This is...
I thought it was a misclick on just getting my stuff, but that's also a dexterity game.
That is a dexterity game, and in a similar vein to Crokinole, this is Catacombs 3rd Edition. Now, I have an awesome relationship with this game because I volunteer at a, it's called GamesCon at Rampart High School here in Colorado Springs every year, and one of the games that I love bringing is Catacombs. And Catacombs 3rd Edition in particular is a take on dexterity dungeon crawling. And this means that you are going to be going through dungeons, fighting monsters, but you do so through actually physically interacting with the map around you. And that's in the form of, if you are a wizard and you're throwing a fireball, you literally take a fireball, put it on the board, and then flick it like you would. The objects and the items, everything is things you'll have to maneuver around as you're trying to complete your quest, which is completely annihilate the enemies and get rid of all of the enemies in each room. So you'll have a pre-setup, and one of my favorite ways to run this is have everything set up and just have them go. And that's one of the coolest things is the kids, they take their turn, it happens immediately. They get the feeling of accomplishment or maybe missing, and then the enemies will go and they go back and forth and you just go quick as possible. I love playing as the villain in this because I can take the turn extremely quickly for all the different characters. And that means it's back to the kids' turns and then they can start playing. That's again, cool. They cooperate, coordinate, talk about who needs to do what, who's better at doing what the position is. Some characters have like defensive abilities. You have like characters with like Captain America shields and you could put those in front of other players. Maybe you launch one of your friends to go ahead and take out enemies. There's so many ways that work in this strange physical space that are unique to this game, and it puts the opportunity for conversation and cooperation in the hands of the players.
That's neat.
The artwork of this is crazy cool, and the presentation is ridiculous. You have this brilliant artwork from Kwachai Moria here. The pieces can take different forms, shapes, and sizes. You have gelatinous cubes that are literal cubes, these huge fireballs, tokens that flip. You have grappling hooks. Anything you can think of. At this point, there's ridiculous amounts of expansions. It exists in this game, and you can customize it as you want. You can introduce new things as you play, and you can scale the difficulty based on the age group that children are playing. This one I mainly play with like fifth grade middle schoolers, 5th grade elementary schoolers up to like high schoolers, but have a successful time anytime I do so. I love Catacombs 3rd Edition. Have you had a chance to play this one?
I've seen it on the shelf a couple times, but I've never heard anyone really talk about it too much, but it sounds super fun. Definitely would be interested in checking it out. I think something that I don't do very often is when I see a game box or hear about a game, I don't like look up live photos of it like that, but like that to me is super engaging, just seeing all of those like discs and stuff on there. Does the box come with that guardrail?
It does, because you're flicking the discs and that prevents it from getting out of the board. The game does everything to make it accessible and not make it drag during the experience. So that's another thing that adds to that engagement factor where kids come to it and they're like, ooh, I know how to do this already. Like, I don't even need to know the specific rules. But then you start learning what your abilities are. But at its core, it's you flick the disc. And so I
cool.
love that. There's none of these like weird catch-alls or anything like that. You do your thing.
That's
If you're a
cool.
fire mage, you're probably throwing a fireball, or if you're an ice princess, you're freezing somebody, and you can try to think about what that's going to be in this game space.
Fun.
Yeah.
I like that.
I love this one. We got a response here. Devon talking about Crokinole. Who would have thought? And then Grunge Life says, "Is it really Devon if he's not talking about Crokinole?"
Whoa, I've actually never seen. So Grunge Life is a friend. I've never seen his avatar blown up to the point to where I could actually see what that is.
I don't know what it is.
It looks like elfin ears and like a little almost animal, like anthropomorphic creature. It's interesting. I've never seen it. It blows up so well in StreamYard. I've never seen that close on. It's Final
I do
Fantasy
like that
11 character.
feature. Oh, there we go.
Okay,
Perfect.
gotcha.
Excellent.
Gotcha.
All right. So that is my number 5. That is Catacombs 3rd edition. Devon, what is your number 4?
Number 4 for me is a party game. It is Monikers. So I think Monikers can sometimes ride or die based off of the cards that are chosen.
Mm-hmm.
But what's amusing to me is the organic way in which people discover how to communicate a card, and I just have so much fun with it. So we played this. Let's see, my 4.5-year-old, my 18-month-old were asleep, but when we were on our vacation with my extended family this last summer, we played this, and Avery joined, and watching him mime stuff that he had no clue what it was, like for the charades round, and then also come up with kind of like creative, child imagination for trying to get across ideas was so much fun. I think that you definitely need kids that enjoy playing games but don't get too flustered if they can't communicate something, because this is definitely one of those games where, like, if you have a round where somebody gets a bajillion cards that their team goes through, and then you only get 1 or 2, it doesn't feel great. But if you're able to kind of get past that, then it works well. But what's fun is when kids can identify cards that, like, generationally older people don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dogecoin, for example. Like, I know Dogecoin as an actual like thing. Like, I understand what it is. And then people that are like my mom's generation have no clue what it is. And then Avery, he doesn't understand what it is, but he knows it because it's existed on the internet and has like the Dogecoin, like the little image of the dog. So seeing that, like, either full or partial information across generations is just a lot of fun. So I've had a good time playing this, and enjoy playing it with kids. It was a very big success at Thanksgiving last year when I brought it. So.
This is awesome to hear. And that's one of the things that I'm a little scared of sometimes is the inaccessibility potentially based on the amount of reading. One thing I love about the Monikers system, though, is first off, this version, the Monikers cards, they have descriptions of what these are. So they have some backbone that you can, if you have no idea, you can just read the card. It's
you
fine.
literally just read the card.
God, it's so nice. I love this edition for that. There are some with images and you can describe what you see. Amazing. Or if you want, you can even customize the cards to your setting. Make it about whatever the kid enjoys, whatever the group enjoys. Yeah. Maybe you are at a club or something like that, and you have all these kids that are just enjoying maybe you're an anime club or something like that. Have them create their own cards with whatever characters are in that anime, and all of a sudden you have a shared thing that you're talking about and playing a great game with. I love Monikers, one of my favorite party games.
And the shared concept that you're talking about is another reason why I like it, because it, like, every game of Monikers can create like stories that those people then have as like shared memories, and that's a lot of fun.
The evolving meta that exists in every single game of Monikers is insane. It contextualizes your experience to the words, the people, and the actions that are being done. And as you described, you'll have a memory unique to that setting.
Yep.
Absolutely. Excellent pick. You've been hitting some like banger games on this list so far. Awesome picks, Devon.
Appreciate it.
Anything else on Monikers?
Oh man. One of my favorite stories from Monikers is we were playing with a friend, and there was just four of us playing, and this just is just an example of the stories that you can create. And I had just gotten done with God of War Ragnarok,
Okay.
and so I was mentally thinking about Jormungandr, I think is ish the name, like the world serpent.
The big serpent.
And then so one of the cards was Ouroboros, which is the snake that eats its own
Mhm.
tail. And so I did that, and my partner couldn't remember the name. And so it got to the point where we were doing charades, and I couldn't say anything anymore. I just had to mimic it. And he couldn't remember the name, and he couldn't get out of his head the only word he could think of. So he just kept yelling Oedipus at me. and
Okay.
so it's this memory I have. It's just like Oedipus, 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 and I was like, no, it's not that. But so I just little moments like that happen just for a moment can like they just extend past any one of those gameplays, and it makes for a lot of fun. So any kind of organic memory making like that is a blast.
Excellent pick. So that is Monikers, Devon's number 4. My number 4 is a game that I play with pretty much everybody, and I like that it's for all ages, but I think it works particularly well with kids. This is Ink and Gold. Now, Ink and Gold is
Mm.
a distillation of a single choice of pushing your luck. Your goal is to either stay in a temple or leave, and you get that choice every single round. So the premise is you're going in there trying to get as much gold as possible, and if you can leave
Yeah. Yeah.
before the cave essentially crumbles, enough hazards show up, then you'll get to keep all of the money that you've decided to run with. But here is the interesting choice here. When you leave, you are going to be able to get any potential money that was left in the temple. So every time a card shows up, it might say like 7 gold. And if there are 3 people playing, you'll distribute it evenly. So it also helps out with some basic division, which I think is awesome. So easy game that integrates it, and it has that immediate example of what you can see. So you divide up the money, and then anything that's left over stays in the temple. Then everyone decides if they want to stay or leave. If you leave, you take whatever's left over. So you get that extra gold. However, if you do decide to do this, you are out of the round now. You are no longer going to be participating, and you no longer have an opportunity to get gold. So at this point, you are hoping that everybody else crashes and burns and eventually succumbs to the different disasters. Now, there are a couple of interesting moments that come in this, and that has to do with one of the small expansions that comes in the most recent printing, and these are the artifact cards. And the artifact cards are going to give you opportunities to get additional bonuses for leaving early. So the
Mm.
artifacts are worth maybe 8, 10 extra money if you are the only person to leave. And this adds some weird play and prediction, as now it's not just about leaving and making the calls based on the odds. It's about seeing what other people are going to do, playing the other people, and also leaving and incorporating that all in this single choice of, do I stay or do I go? And this is a choice anybody can
Do I
make.
stay or do I go? Sure.
It's a choice anyone can make. It has the simple joy of, I'm either making it big or I'm completely failing. And there's 5 small rounds as opposed to just one big round. So even if you have a poor round, you can come back into it and have a great time on the next one. So you're never completely out. And I think that's a cool feeling where you always have a chance to make more money.
That's cool. I've seen this played at Gamma last year. I think it was
Okay.
Gamma. Yeah, yep, it was Gamma last year, I think, or maybe it was Gamma 2 years ago. Anyways, I saw it played. It looked like a lot of fun. The kind of push your luck in terms of staying. It created a lot of moments where there was like agonized like around the table whenever somebody stayed in and got so much like stuff that no one else did, or whenever they like pushed their luck and then finally got that last fail and they be busted. So I didn't play, but it looked like a lot of fun.
Another thing that this game does extremely well is it scales up to a ridiculous amount of players. You can play this game with any amount of people. So it doesn't matter how many you have. Yes, you draw 17 and you have 30 people playing, and it all just goes on the 17 card. Now that's a big choice for every single person playing. Do they leave? And if they're the only person that leaves, they get 17 coins. But if more than one person leaves, they split whatever's in the middle there, and they have to
Yeah.
be like, oh man, 2 people left, so now I only get 8. Or if 5 people leave, you're getting way less. You're only getting 3. And so you have to always decide each moment, like, do you stay? Do you go? And based on the size, that's going to change the factors, the size, the timing, the different artifacts that show up. And there is a set amount of each of the hazards, set amounts of these cards with treasures on them. And so those numbers will fluctuate back and forth as well. So I love that this plays huge amounts of people, but it also plays extremely little, small amounts of people.
Nice.
So this is
I'll need to try it out sometime.
Ink and Gold. It also goes by Diamant. There's several editions of this game. Some that use like these cute little tents. That's the one that we have. And then others that have these super fancy bags. Some that use cards, meeples. So you can find an edition somewhere, but no matter what, it's going to be a good time. Make sure you get those artifacts, though. I do think that's a pretty key part for this one. So that is my number 4. That is Ink and Gold.
Nice.
That brings us to number 3. Devin, what you got for me?
Number 3 for me is Dice Throne.
Ooh,
I am a big old Dice Throne fan. I do think that one thing that I kind of try to focus on is teaching this one in spurts. And depending on the disposition of who you're playing with, that could bother people, but it's never really bugged me in terms of how I teach Avery. Like when I taught this to Avery and when we played before, my initial focus was just on almost King of Tokyo level teach, where it's just like, hey, you have this character, I have this character. They've got some abilities, and now roll your dice and see what you can do to hit me. And then once he got the core concept of that, then it was like, okay, cool. Well, your deck has a bunch of cards that you can use to change that. And then also your deck has a bunch of upgrades to those abilities. So if you like certain abilities more than others, you can focus on those. And it was kind of just gradually, you may know this because you also teach, but it's a term's called scaffolding. And it's about if a student, whether it's a kid or an adult, if a student can get to this on their own, then you can maybe get them even higher to this if you help bridge the gap for them in terms of elevating where they're able to understand through how you teach them and the method you use to get them there, so that on their own they may only be able to understand or intuit a certain amount of content or a certain amount of ideas, but then you can build them up to a higher level through how you approach the teaching. So that's kind of what I did with Dice Throne, was take it in bites, to where I taught him a little bit as we went, to where by the end of it, he was, I think he was Black Widow the last time him and I played, because I was playing from the Marvel. I have all 3 seasons of this. I have the battle chest for season 1, I have the battle chest for season 2, and I have the battle chest for Marvel Dice Throne. I'm a big fan of this game. I like it a lot. 2-player heads-up games are in my sweet spot. I enjoy them a lot. So I got to the point where he was able to take some more complex characters and play those based off of just gradually getting him into it. Because King of Tokyo is a game that I used to play with him and teach him. And so this is just kind of King of Tokyo plus, I guess, in my opinion, in terms of what it has. Yep. So the Pyromancer, Shadow Thief, those are all from the first season, which was my first introduction to the game back when Roxley had it in the box cover that was actually shown on BGG there. So I really, really enjoy this one. And Avery, I think one of the reasons why this is such a good pick for kids is the excitement and anticipation of successive dice rolling. When you're able to get that Yahtzee and you get an ultimate, or whenever you're able to, you have kind of like a gut shot straight, and you're trying to get the one number that's in the middle of the straight, and you get those dice rolls. Or if you're just far off from it, but you're able to combine the right amount of combat points with the right amount of card play in your hand, and you're able to force the play, or equally, on the inverse side of that, if you're able to prevent that happening to you from what the other player is doing. I have a really good time with this game. Absolutely delighted every time I get to play it, and it's got a lot of life to it in terms of any type of person I'm playing with, but it does well with kids.
Now, do you find that the Marvel version or the original versions with like their own characters, which one works best for kids, you would say?
I mean, I think that Marvel Dice Throne thematically has the connection point for a lot of kids because, I mean, the Marvel universe, at least in film, didn't really start blowing up until 2008 with Iron Man. So
Mhm.
for me, I didn't grow up with it, but Avery's grown up with Marvel in terms of being like a pervasive
Yeah.
cultural presence. It's, you don't have to be a kid who's grown up reading comics to know all of these characters. They have absolutely permeated the media space. So for him, he's more excited by because he can be Miles Morales, he can be Loki, he can be Black Widow, he can be all these characters that he's seen on the screen. That's a remarkably talented handhold.
They got it
He's
all in there.
They got
That's a
all
thing.
of it in there. That's really impressive.
I love the characters that they chose for the Marvel Dice Throne series. They
Yeah,
have huge range. They've got Miles, they've got Scarlet Witch, you've got Captain Marvel, you got some cool characters, and then
yeah,
the artwork and presentation of each is excellent. I love that they
yes.
capture this in
Manny
the artwork.
Tremblay
God, it's so good.
killed it. He did so good, so good. So yeah, for Avery, he's more personally interested in the Marvel characters. My favorite character to date is the Artificer from season
Okay.
2, who is like a 5 complexity, like maniacal tinkerer who makes little battle bots and healing bots
Oh,
and stuff.
fun.
So my favorite's the tinkerer or the artificer,
The
but
artificer.
sorry, tinkerer is a Gloomhaven character, which is in much the same vein. So yeah, Dice Throne for me is my number 3.
Excellent. And I do really enjoy what you said there about the scaffolding in general. It's a teaching tactic that's used all the time, and because it is so effective. And you just mentioned it, Gloomhaven even does it
That's the
in
artificer right
Jaws
there.
of the Lion. So in Jaws of the Lion, they scaffold you by introducing just one part of the card in the first mission, and then in the second mission, adding an additional piece. And then you learn as you play one piece at a time until you're up and running with the full Gloomhaven rule set. So I love that. I think that it's amazing that it's being put into gaming instructions and demos and
Mhm.
tutorials. I think it's going to be huge in making sure that every game is accessible. So I love that, and I love that you mentioned it here. So yep, scaffolding, incredible teaching tool, and pretty much used all the
Yep.
time. Excellent. So that is Devon's number 3. That is Dice Throne. I'm glad you love that one. Artificer sounds so cool. I love characters like that where they get to summon little
Yeah.
bots and go off with them.
Yeah, he's weak until you get the bots up and running, and then he's just that's the name of my tinkerer in our Gloomhaven game.
Got it. Perfect. Excellent. Kink the Tink. I think we named ours Specs, if I remember correctly.
That's nice. That's
Yeah. Specs the Tinkerer. Who knows? All right. And that brings us to my number 3. Yes. My number 3 is a tiny little game that is one of the oldest games that I own. From owning it, I would say. It's not necessarily a super old game. This is Rumble in the Dungeon. I don't think this game gets enough love. And this is one
Never
that I
heard of it.
pull out constantly. It is a game that can take short amount of time to as long as you'd like, and it offers so much. So let's quickly talk about what Rumble in the Dungeon is. So this is a deduction game of sorts where you are controlling 2 secret characters inside of a dungeon. Your goal is to make sure that those characters survive. So it's a survival deduction game because while you're keeping your characters alive, you're trying to eliminate all of your opponent's characters. And you do this through simple action choices. On your turn, the first thing you can do is you can move a character. And so there will be a dungeon of characters that is made up of tiles, and you'll need to either move one. Once a character moves into a room, it's stuck in combat with that character, and they are no longer allowed to leave. It's a battle to the death, but you can keep on piling people into the
Wow,
same
this was
room.
back when they were cool mini or not.
I know, right? Isn't that wild? So it is a CMON game, so take that as you will. But you have you can move into a room, or you take out somebody. If there's 2 people in a room, one defeats the other, and they're removed from the game. And you put them in an order at the bottom of the board, showing that this person was eliminated first. Because your goal, once again, is to survive as long as you can. Because at the end of the round, when there's one character standing, that character receives like the ultimate victory, which is 10 points if you're playing multiple rounds. And so this teaches a couple of things where you do the best you can in every single game. And I love that because you are entering this, you're doing the best you can, and you don't give up. You are also trying to anticipate what other people are doing and be able to manipulate their characters and see how they're reacting and behaving and try to figure out who they are and what characters they're trying to save or manipulate. Because if you don't win, you still have manipulation over the other players and how many points they can potentially get. So, as mentioned before, you have this large dungeon and you're moving a single character, but you have the freedom to move any character. You're not just forced to move your own characters. And so this allows you to maybe feign and pretend that you're a specific character, or allow you to put situations in cause events that will make it advantageous to you inadvertently. So there's a lot of sneaky
Love the
aggression,
art on
passive
this.
aggression. Agreed. And there's like 4 versions of this game. You can get
This
a dungeon one. There's a
this
Cthulhu one.
visually reminds me of like art that you'd see on like a game from miniclip.com like back in the day. Did you ever play on that website?
Yes, I
Like
did.
the
The who
flash
is it?
games?
Oh man, the pants guy. There's like fancy pants man that would run around. There's, I'm telling you, that was like the go-to.
Man.
Mini clip.
I like Line Rider and stuff
That's
like
it. Line Rider. Yes.
that.
There you go. Oh, there was the Flash Portal game. I love that one. That one is so good.
Gosh, man.
Quality. I never got to play Portal like on the Xbox or anything like that, but I played the Flash one. Like it was my job.
Can you think of any of the 3 that you've mentioned so far that would be good with a 3-year-old? That's
I
what
think this
Sherman
game.
was asking about.
Ooh. All right, let's take a look really quick. Please call out which of these games would be good with a 3-year-old that loves her dice tower that George got her. Okay, so for 3-year-olds, I think that Ink and Gold is an excellent game. I do play that with my nephews, and one is he's 3.5, 4. Oh
Nice.
man, if they watch this, I don't know how old your child is. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Abby. I don't know how old they are. Oh, I'm so bad. This game is super approachable because it is that simple decision of move or take out. So you do have 2 choices, and then my top 2 are also excellent with 2 3-year-olds. So
Nice.
if you do have more time to stay, I know you are only going to be here for a little bit, but the next 2 I think are some of the best games. Number 1 in particular, good for any age, which is awesome.
Cool.
The Rumble in the Dungeon, it offers that choice of doing the best you can every single round because you do get points based on how long you've survived. And so you are trying to just do the best as well as mess with other people and influence somehow. So you're never out of it, even if your character is eliminated. So it helps with understanding that process and the relationship of still having an impact, even though your character is not necessarily there. And then I also love that you can learn how people are moving things and you can understand the relationship between moving characters and then the consequences that come from those. So this is one that I love. It's so simple in the way it works, but you learn and develop just how the game works in general. I love this. My dad's giving me a hard time. He says, back in the day, yes, that was so long ago. It was like 8 years ago. That's a long time ago. The game came out in, man, I'm wondering, when did this game come out? It came out in 2011, I want to say.
Oh, I thought
2012.
I was the one that said back in the day about miniclip.
Oh. Miniclip was 2005, 2006.
It was a
That's
while.
a long time ago.
A while ago.
18 years ago.
Yep.
That's insane.
OG YouTube started in 2005 as well. That was when YouTube started.
That is crazy.
18 years, man.
Holy cow. So that is my number 3. That is Rumble in the Dungeon. All right, Devon, what you got? Your number 2.
My number 2 is Santorini.
Okay.
So, and again, going back to the concept of scaffolding, there are 2 ways to play Santorini. And when I first taught it to my son, we played without God powers. God powers drastically turn this from a approachable abstract to a game that's still approachable, but much more nuanced in terms of the decisions that you make based off of what your God can do and what the other God can do of your opponent. I was uncertain of whether I liked Santorini when I first got it. I hadn't played with the God powers yet, and it has survived any call so far. I still pull it out every now and then. There's about 4 or 5 games that I started playing with Avery that have still survived. Azul's one of them, but Santorini is up there. I think it definitely gives. So I don't like chess. I grew up playing chess. I played it with my brother and my dad and my sister. I respect chess, but it's not something that really engages me. However, I love abstract games. I do love a lot of abstract titles. I have Shobu back there. I have Azul back there. I have Azul. I'm like, yeah, on it's fine. But I have like Shobu back there, and I would love to maybe potentially try Go at some point. But Santorini is a really clever game. If you're not familiar with Santorini, the goal is to so in the picture that Mackenzie's showing right there, there is one particular uh, place that does not have a dome on it, and it's got a circular or an octagonal third floor. And if you get your worker on top of one of those, you win. However, it's not that easy. You can only go up one floor at a time. So if you're down on the ground floor, you can't just magically hop up to that third floor right there and be on top of that. So it's all about moving yourself around the board while building up the right levels for you to get higher, and also preventing your opponent from being able to do the same, which is where those blue domes come in. You cap it off, you can no longer get on there. It's an interesting game that has both player blocking. You can essentially checkmate your opponents into corners and into spaces that they can't get out of. So there is the concern of being mindful of where you're moving. But those god powers that it shows on the next slide that, or on the next picture that Mackenzie's got up there, that's where the variability comes into play, and that's where the depth of decision making exists, because each of those gods has a particular way that they're able to manipulate the game and break the rules to benefit themselves, whether it's like preventing the movement of another player, or whether it's building more than is available. There's so many different god cards and so many different rule sets that you have to account for, that it turns heads up play with a kid from something that you're like, hey, let me teach you this quick abstract, to let me give you some meatier decisions to ponder while we're playing. And we always end up playing 2 or 3 rounds of god powers in a row, as he whether he wins or whether he loses, he's like, oh, I want to try this now, I want to try this. So he gets really engaged with the game every time we play. We don't always bring it out, but when we do, we typically play 3 to 5 rounds worth of it, just because he enjoys it enough. So Santorini number 2.
I love the god powers in this, in particular, the ones that give alternate win conditions. I think that's just such a fun layer of something extra on top of the simple framework that is Santorini. So there's one in particular where your goal is to jump off a building. Like, that's your goal. Just like jump off of a 2-story building. And so now it becomes a puzzle of putting floors under people as opposed to just building up. And so now you're managing multiple things, but yes, they have a win condition, but they don't have a cool ability. They don't have an additional way to interact with the board. So you have a little bit of a leg up on there, and now you have something else that you're thinking about. I love that system, the extra win conditions in particular.
Yep. And then I like me some Santorini for sure.
Threadme says, Santorini is my stepson's favorite game. I remember the first time he beat me, the pride on his face, well earned. And I love that. Just when they get to the point where they do defeat you and it is well earned. When you play with your kids, Devon, do you hold back? Do you just you're like, oh, let's get body, let's go? What do you do when you're about to play?
It's a mix. I think I'm probably on the meaner side of things. I have my dad, his kind of methodology whenever I was growing up was to always try, but just modulate the intensity with which he did so, to where he was always kind of like, he was always within reach, but always just out of reach. And it made me, feel like I was like getting closer and closer and closer. And as I got older, then, he continually pushed that up to where it was, it always felt like a contest. Like I don't ever think I got absolutely floored. But I've crushed Avery before in games, but also he like without me not trying, he's beaten me in plenty of games. Like he beat
Mhm.
me in Tiny Epic Galaxies. He's beaten me in Santorini. He's beaten me in enough games that uh I never want anybody that I'm playing with to feel like I'm not trying. So uh I feel like it's kind of like a case by case basis depending on what the game is and then also what who I'm playing against. But Avery enjoys knowing that he's beaten me
Mhm.
and not like I've given him a win.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think my dad was very similar in that way where he would not hold back and he would definitely try to always win. And so when we did win, it was very much earned. And now there's a point where he just can't win games. So it's pretty funny. And that's like the mark of succession.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
is awesome. Whenever I approach games with kids, I'm always just trying to live the dream. That's my goal. I'm trying to do like whatever the riskiest thing is, make a dumb strategy work. That's my approach
yeah.
usually when I play stuff to just show
I
the
think that's a
possibilities.
I think that's a great I think that's a great way of getting to explore a game as well. Is like you you can try, but maybe you're trying with a completely different strategy than you normally would.
Mhm.
And maybe you're riskier. And I think that that still creates excitement on both sides.
Agreed. I also love that it just shows the potential, what this game can do to the person watching. Like, oh my God, I could do that next time. Or, oh,
Yeah.
ooh, what are you doing? Or you watch it spectacularly fail and they're like, you tried, it didn't work. And you're like, I know. So, what does that tell us about next time? Probably don't do that. So I love that. It's so much fun. Good
Nice.
stuff.
Nice.
Uh,
What's your number 2?
a couple of comments quick. We've got
Oh.
Shred Me says, crushing them is how they learn to be good losers. And then we demonstrate how to be good winners. I like it. And then John says, never did. That's why you are as good as you are. That's my dad. He never held back, which is wild. No
Well,
quarter.
you've appropriately scaled to meet the challenge.
That's true. That is true. Okay, moving to my number 2. It is Coloretto. This is one of my favorite filler games ever. I think it's the perfect 10 out of
Never
10
heard of
small card game. What, Devon? You got to get on this. It's
it.
back in print. Life is good. All right, Coloretto is the chameleon matching game. The whole goal is to collect matching sets of colored chameleons, but not too many because at the end of the game, you're going to score positive points for your 3 largest sets of chameleons. Anything that's outside of those 3 largest set of chameleons is going to instead be negative points. You have a little reference card that tells you how much those points are. And the coolest part about this game is how you actually collect them. This is a I split, you choose style game where on your turn, you have 2 choices. The first choice is you can draw a card from the top of the deck and you place it into a pile in the center of the table. The second option you can do is you can take one of the piles in the center of the table. And what this ends up making is at the end of the game, you are going to have all of these different chameleons in front of you based on taking from these separate piles. So if you ever are on your turn going to reveal a card, everybody else gets an option to take it before you do. So you are trying to place it in a pile that is not enticing for the other players based on the colors that they've already collected. For example, if you are this player in front of you, you have a bunch of reds, you've got some oranges, you've got some yellows, but then you have in your not so big sets, you have purple and green. So if you get more purple and green, those are not your highest. So it's going to give you more negative points because it's going to increase those stacks. And the more of the lower stacks that you have, the higher up the
Mm.
numbers in those, the more negative points you get. So if somebody can see that you're collecting a specific color and then dunk on you by putting on a couple of chameleons that are bad colors for you based on what you've collected. And this emerges as you play the game based on the choices that you've been making. This is such a fun concept for kids to discover as they start understanding, oh my gosh, like you've ruined me. You've put this orange in the middle of my greens. I can't take this orange. It'll give me negative 5 points. There's no point in taking this. And then they think about it, they're like, but wait, you can't do it either. If you take that, it'll super ruin you. You don't have any of these colors. This is gonna ruin you. So they take the other one. Then all of a sudden, your decision has ruined yourself based on the decision that you both have made. I love this. The
That's
10
fun.
decisions of every single card that you play, every stack that you take. And one of the coolest parts about this is you can leave the round at any time. You never have to stay to get a full set of cards. Generally, it's 3 per pile. In a 2-player game, it changes a little bit, but you can always dip out of a round if you're pretty comfortable with where the game's at, and then force other players to take these different cards. Easy to play, bright and colorful, accessible, something that you understand the strategy. And the cherry on top of it is there is a small promo expansion set that adds a single rule. It's like a bonus rule card that you'll put into each game that changes the game drastically. Like, for example, every time you get one of these bonus +2 cards, it goes to your neighbor on the left. Or every time you play this game, if you only score your 2 biggest sets instead of your 3 biggest sets. So now all of a sudden you're getting way more negative.
A lot more negatives. Yeah.
It is insane. Cool. And it changes drastically how you're going to approach the games.
Sounds fun.
The color, you got to give this one a try. It's only like $10. It's ridiculously cheap. And this is one of the best games out there. Oh my God. Colorado is so good. This is one I love playing with my nephews in particular. We do a video.
How old are they again?
They are one's in kindergarten, preschool, and the other one's in first, second, third grade. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I love you. I love you both. But we'll set up a video camera and then have just the board there, and they can watch it, they can track it, they collect it, and it's so much fun because you can hear just the excitement when it goes in their favor. I love this. This is a great game.
That's cool. That's cool.
Classic Colorado. This is one of my new favorites. I strongly recommend it. And that brings us, though, there's one more that's better than Colorado. Insane. Brings us to our number 1.
I'm excited to hear what yours is based off that.
I just got to play this the other day, and I was like, yeah, this has to be it. I played it last weekend like 3 times. Incredible game.
Snap.
All right.
Is it a crossover?
I hope so. What do you got for me, Devon? Not yet.
My number 1 is Marvel United.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
I think that the caveat for this is a game that is better the more that you have, which sounds like a push to buy a lot of stuff. But the reason for that is most boxes of Marvel United are created to have multiple heroes and then like one core villain. But the most unique element of the game is how each villain functions and how each villain like mixes up the base rules and how you have to defeat that villain. So if you want the most amount of variety in the game, you need the most amount of villains, which results in getting a lot of stuff. Now, the most recent expansion for this, the most recent campaign, was the multiverse, and it added what I thought was the most needed element to make the characters, the heroes, more interesting, who generally each have just a deck of particular cards that you're playing with certain symbols on them. But beyond that, they really don't have a lot of asymmetry from any other of the other characters. They introduced in the most recent campaign, the multiverse campaign, equipment. And so now all of these different characters can have equipment cards that thematically go along with who they are in the in the world of Marvel. That was weird. I swallowed my own spit. And so the character cards create, I think, the most amount of variety that's existed, which is the heroes. Just don't know how to breathe, apparently. So I played this with Avery, and I've had an absolute blast doing so. I think one of the qualities that makes it so inviting to kids is the chibi nature of the miniatures. It's so visually and like tactile accessible to them. And, like my son, whenever we beat a villain, he likes to, get the hero and like knock over the villain to where they like topple off to the side. It is definitely like a cash, sink in terms of like, if you really try to invest in it, it's a lot of money. But they have such a toy factor to it. And it is a lot of fun to create your own narratives. Like we've played with, a lot of the characters from the Spider-Man movies, and we've been Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen and stuff like that. So to be those characters and to kind of, you and I started off the stream, or really pre-stream, discussing Rebellion.
Yeah.
And Star Wars Rebellion, to me, thematically does a fantastic job of making you feel like you're living out that narrative, where you're living out that world and getting to be the rebels and getting to be the Empire. And this accomplishes that from the Marvel side. It feels like you're getting to live out these superhero moments, and the mechanics are. I remember when this first came out, a lot of critique was they were like people were like, this is such a shallow game gameplay wise. I would disagree. I just think that a lot of us have a skewed hobbyist perception of like what gateway means. And I think any game that can bring both kids or adults into the hobby for the first time and do so equally well is a good game. And it has, just an absolute glut of content that you can get for it. As Mackenzie's just, I've been monologuing for 5 minutes, and Mackenzie's just been scrolling. And so, yeah, you can get an insane. It's the kind of game where if you buy it and you like it, you could really invest a lot into it in terms of how much there is. But I played it for the first time. I just bought like an Amazon pack. So I got the base game, and then I got the Spider-Man expansion. And the two of those, I got them on like Amazon for maybe $30 for both of them together. Which that if you're just getting if you just want to test it out, that's an incredibly cheap way to try a game and see if you like it. This I would obviously only encourage if you like the game. I mean, I'm at the point now where it's probably not visible. I have all of the first season, all of the second season, and then there's a guy that I'm friends with who also runs like a custom insert business. His name's Joe, and his business is called One Sharp Joe Crafts. And he has, I essentially have all. I'm just gonna go. It's too cool not to show you.
Oh man. So while Devon's over there getting it, I definitely was in that group where I was not super impressed with this game, and it was a little frustrating because I was like, "Oh, there's so many cool things about this that I enjoy," and it felt a little simple for me, even for a cooperative setting where it didn't have that gripping thing that would bring people back, including younger kids. So that's where I was in this, unfortunately, where it wasn't super enticing, and I didn't see myself necessarily going into it and being like, oh, this is one that I'm excited to play, and the kids are also going to be excited to play. It has the cool characters and heroes, yes, with the miniatures, but ooh, let's take a look what he's got here. Ooh, wow.
It's got vertical dividers in it.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
can just pull out characters at will.
Wow. I
And
love setups like that. God, that's so nice. Are the miniatures with the characters as well?
Huh?
Are the miniatures with the characters as well?
No, so that's the thing that me and him are still trying to figure out, like, the
Ooh.
best solution for.
Mhm.
All of the miniatures are just in the stretch goal boxes, but I mean, I essentially between the 2 seasons, it was 19 boxes between the first 2 seasons. 19 boxes of the game. And I got rid of 17 of those.
That's
So
such
I
a good
have the 2
feeling when you
stretch
go
goal
through all that
boxes with
CMON
all of
stuff.
the miniatures, and then these 2 chests. And so, like, that was like one of the main thing that people were they're like, no one's gonna ever want to like access all of that stuff. It's just
Mhm.
too much, and it's spread out so well. But like, I can just go, I want to play with Ghost Rider and I want to play with Electra, and I'll just get those out, set it up, and then I just get their matching miniatures. So and then like it's got all the locations in it and stuff. So
I love that. I love
um,
that it's so easy to customize an experience. The way you describe your setups of this remind me a lot of Marvel Champions, Marvel Legendary, anything that allows you to play in a world. You can go watch a movie, and as soon as you finish, you're like, "Ooh, I'm doing this right now. We're playing the Spider-Verse setting," and it looks like Marvel United allows you to
yeah,
do that. Absolutely. And then you're able to have this thing that maybe even becomes a tradition that you continue doing every time you see one of these movies. This is now the game that you come back to. And I love that Marvel United's like allowing you to do that. And it's something that you're enjoying. This is great.
Skadoosh. All right.
Awesome. So I'm glad that it's like just working so effectively in general. That's cool. I'm glad that the organization system helps it get played and helps you create those custom scenarios.
Yeah. No, it's the best way for me to be able to have it. If I didn't have that, I probably would have gotten rid of it by now. Because just like 19 boxes for a single game experience is just stupid. It's stupid. So yeah, like being able to just grab whatever I want from there is very, very nice.
Agreed. It's something similar with like Unmatched. Even I like that they have their own separate boxes, but I love just putting them all together because then it's all at your fingertips and you can pick anything you want, set, make any scenario, and just the combination of the things is what I think is one of the most exciting parts of it. And seeing how the different mechanisms and matchups pair up and play, and in this case, the unique effects of the villains paired with the heroes, and now with the equipment cards, giving them some more personality. I agree with you. I think that's something that the game needed drastically, was something to differentiate the heroes just a little bit more. So I like that a lot.
And I think I heard a smidge of what you were saying through that, because my audio.
I definitely fell in that category that you were describing of somebody who wasn't super impressed with the game. This would follow in the same category as something like the Stranger Things game that was out recently, where the game is thematically solid. The game has ways that you can get in easily, but the actions that I'm doing in the game just aren't that exciting to me. And I feel like the game itself is not an experience that I would be excited for. And if I were to teach something like this to a kid, I feel like they may not be super enticed with it either, because it's so straightforward and simple that is it as rewarding to get to that point when I could do something like a Catacombs, where it has that thematic nature and you can get more in depth and discover, but you are immediately doing interesting and exciting things. So looking for where that the buy-in meets the gameplay and like willingness to go further and explore those more interesting mechanisms that it seems are in the expansions. So where was that point for you? When did you start introducing more complicated aspects of this game with the more expansion content?
It was definitely, I think, the tipping point for me, because I mentioned earlier that I really think I bought the game, just the Spider-Man expansion and the base version of it. And at the time, I was like, I'm going to check this out and we'll see. And I played it and I was like, that was fun, but I don't think this would ever last long unless I got like all of it. And then Alex from Board Game Co. was very generous, and he was shutting down his trading company. And he sent me all of the 2 seasons of it.
Whoa.
So like, which at the time, I mean, not even even now, it was a lot of content, a lot of game, and a lot of money that he was very, very generous about. And so he sent me that, and it was kind of then that I was like, okay, if I'm going to keep this, I need to see if it's something that I would want to explore. And since then, I mean, if you go over to Board Game Co. and check out, you just type in Marvel United. Alex and I have played, just the two of us, like a dozen times on his channel. And then with Avery, it was finding the right types of villains who he felt connected to through the movies. Like, he loves Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. We both enjoyed a lot. So we fought against Mysterio and we got our butts kicked. And then, he likes the Thor movies. And so we played against Hela and trying to fight against her. And so being able to reenact to, somewhat degree, like movie moments and cultural moments for us, where we tried to take on Hela, we tried to take on Mysterio, we went after Red Skull, and like moments to him where he was kind of reliving the movie and we were getting to be the heroes, allowed us to go beyond just the base mechanics of symbol matching. And then the base game, I don't know how many games of it you played, or if you played
twice. I played twice with the base game.
With the base game? They're like the least interesting villains. Like Alex and I on his channel, we've done the full Infinity Gauntlet
Mhm.
cycle where we try to beat all of the like Black Hand sub
Mhm.
titans of, and then go after Thanos. One of my favorite ones was we did the Sentinels, which a lot, like if you've watched X-Men Days of Future Past, you're kind of reenacting that fight where you're going up
That's
against
cool.
these massive Sentinels and stuff. And like the Sentinels are large and they go to different locations, and just the way of having wildly different wind conditions and styles of what you have to do is where the base mechanics meet a compelling puzzle. So it's one of those things where, um, yeah. So Ruben just said that he plays with his 9-year-old, his 7-year-old, his 5-year-old. Yeah, the 5-year-old that would be pretty young. So let's see. Um, yeah, Alex and I have done the blue team versus the gold team. We've done the Infinity. We've done the Phoenix 5, which was crazy. It's a game that I really do think if you think there's any amount of interest there and you invest in it, you get the value out of it as long as you make it so you can actually see it. Yeah, right there on the screen. But so like that's two Calyx boxes are, or two Calyx spaces are now what used to be like half of an entire Calyx worth of games. And so that level of condensing, I
Yeah.
think, has made it worth it in terms of staying.
That makes a lot
Uh,
of sense to me. Now, if you were to give one recommendation for anybody on like the initial expansions to try the system, would you recommend the core game and the Spider-Man set, or is there a different core set you might recommend now based on your experiences?
I think X-Men is the better core set out of
Okay.
the two of them. So you can get the X-Men base set. I think it's better than the original set in terms of giving a good experience. And then if you could get one expansion out of the stuff that's available on the secondary market. And this is a CMON game, this is a CMON game. So it's a lot of the stuff were Kickstarter exclusives. So if you're going to get it, in like hindsight, your secondary market
Yeah.
really not gonna really you are gonna be at a rare game store that would have it. It would just be like the type of retail store that happened to buy
Yeah.
into Kickstarter itself. But if you could get one, I would maybe try to get the Sinister Six because it's got um, a lot of really interesting villains, and then it also has a separate mode which allows you to go up against all six of them at the same time, which Alex and I were not able to accomplish. We didn't win, but it poses interesting because I think Spider-Man is in my opinion is one of the most accessible to kids as a superhero, and all of the movies. You've got the oh goodness, I forgot his name. I mean, he what's the OG
Tobey
actor?
Maguire?
Tobey Maguire. You got Tobey Maguire, you got Andrew Garfield, and then you got Tom Holland. And between all of them, pretty much every single one of those enemies has been featured. I think the only one in that list that maybe we haven't seen is Craven,
Mhm.
which is upcoming, in terms of movies that are on the way in the MCU. So that particular expansion, you get a whole bunch of villains, which is the best part of the game. And then you get an opportunity to fight all of them. So like that expansion to me is like pound for pound one of the better ways to experience the game because you get so many different villains. Uh, and so yeah, that would possibly be my recommendation. Um, oh, is that the Sinister Six? Yeah, so that's like a
Yeah, that's a chip,
custom
yeah.
board that replaces the
Oh,
original one, and you
okay.
literally have to fight all six of them at the same time.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So yeah, yep, and all of those have been featured except for Craven. So, like, Avery has familiarity with all of those, pretty much, and in some cases, multiple instances across. multiple trilogies. So yeah, I think that's one of the best expansions there is. This Sentinel one was also amazing, but I think this one might give kids more of a intrigue. I think Days of Future Past is not really like a kids Marvel movie.
Yeah.
So it interests me, but maybe isn't the best for kids. So if we're talking about kids, I would say Sinister Six and then the X-Men base.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Devon, for your recommendations. Any other things you want to mention before Marvel United before we go to the last entry?
I'm well aware of how expensive it is, so take everything I've said for the last 10 minutes with a grain of salt.
Got it. All right. So that was Marvel United, Devon's favorite board game to play with kids. And that brings me to my number one. And this is a game that I play constantly. I play it with adults, I play it with kids. And I think it works brilliantly with kids. And this is for kids of all ages, from 2 all the way up until they are out of the house. If whatever they want to consider themselves as not being a kid anymore, this is Coconuts. Now, Coconuts is a extremely simple dexterity game where you play as monkeys who are hurling coconuts into cups. Think of a 4 kids Pong style game, but
yeah, I was saying, is this like
but the game itself utilizes these monkey contraptions, these little toys that actually do the flicking of the coconuts. So take a look at the board here. Each player is going to set up with this little monkey that sits behind this bar, and it's all based off of Sun Wukong, the Journey to the West. So they have the little poles that keep them separate, and your goal is to make a stack of 6 cups in front of you. On your turn, you flick a coconut on your monkey and you try to hit it into one of the cups. If you get into a cup, it goes in front of you. Then it's next player's turn. If you hit into a red cup, you get to go again. And there are some additional cards that you may play with that allow you to get some special abilities and powers that interrupt or give you special abilities and can help propel you to get that end game condition. At the surface, this game seems like it's nothing. It's a simple activity, but the game itself does so many clever things, and I got to shout its praises. And the first thing it does is it ramps to a satisfying end game. Every time you throw a coconut into one of the cups, and the coconuts are shared by everybody, it's removed from the game forever. And this is going to make it so that there are less coconuts to go. The game is starting to propel to a end game state, and it becomes critical on what cups you go for, because if the game does completely end, it's whoever's got those most cups in front of them is going to win. So you are trying to flick to take the cups, to reposition them, to put yourself in positions that when that game end trigger happens, you win the entire experience. I love this built-in timer. The next thing that it does is it gives you priority targets. You have these cups that are red that are going to give you bonus actions, but if you take them, if opponents aim at you now, they get additional bonuses for aiming at the cups that now are in front of you. In addition, other players become targets. So there's a self-balancing mechanism that occurs based on just the players interacting. If I see that you have 5 cups and you're about to win, I'm aiming for you. It's happening. Like, that's going. Everybody at the table collectively says, I got to get Devon. I got to get Mackenzie. It's happening. We're going to get this person. And then it's an achievement. Everybody cheers, is excited because now there's a chance you're back in it. But if the person does win, congratulations, you did it. You survived the gauntlet. Well done. You deserve this. And then you play again. So you have this self-pacing, self-balancing, engaging experience. And then the cherry on top of this is the fact that this game teaches restraint. So these monkeys, they put their little hands all the way down. When you flick, this thing goes flying. It's going to happen. So when you play, you can't just push it down and flick it. You have to actually try. It's something where you're going to take your time, but not necessarily it takes forever, but you give a thoughtful shot as to where you're throwing things, and you are trying to hit a specific target. And so it allows you to take a breath, and you're planning what you're doing as the other players are taking their turns, because you do it one at a time, and you are making and setting up for that shot. So I love that it teaches these different things of restraint. It allows you to have that camaraderie, even though you're playing competitively, and it's approachable for all ages. It's something that you can help kids with holding. They understand how the different mechanisms work. They start to understand how things move around. It's very similar to what you described with Crokinole, where just the presentation of this game, you already feel like you know how to play once you start going, but then you can scale up the difficulty based on who you're playing with, what you're playing. And that's where these cards can come in as well. They become these self-balancing systems that you can also, not self-balancing, these can be balancing systems that you incorporate to even the playing field a little bit. Some of the bonus cards, sometimes you just won't use them. Maybe you're not feeling it, or some of the cards are pretty brutal. Like there's one where it's like, if somebody gets a score, then it didn't count and they have to do it again. But this can be a big deal for somebody who is not quite good at this style of dexterity yet, and they're still learning. And you can use that as a self-balancing, that's a balancing system that you can implement as a handicap at the start of the game. So cute little artwork with all these different little monkey contraptions. You've got some where they have to pick a specific target, and that's the one that they have to go into. One where they have to shoot where the eyes are closed. One where you literally take a blanket or something that makes wind and you shake it so that way you're making this interrupting blast of air to try to mess where the coconut's going to go. Hilarious. They are take that cards, but they're done in a funny way that you can still achieve through, which I think is cool. The eyes closed one, you're a legend if you can get that. The one where they choose your target that you have to hit, you're a legend if you get that. And in the 2-player version of it, there's a card that makes it so every cup that turn is red. And so you can have a turn where you get like 6 or 7 cups and just auto win in a single turn. And
wow.
Once again, you're a legend if you can do it. So it sets you up for these moments that are engaging, exciting, but accessible. I love coconuts, and it's one that I'm going to be playing all the time. Like I said before, I just played it this last weekend with some of my friends and their son and had an absolute blast with it. And the next day he was begging to play it, but unfortunately he didn't finish his homework, so didn't get to play
it. What an end to the stream. Unfortunately, he didn't finish his homework.
Thank you for joining us, Nathaniel. Glad you're able to make it here for the end. And yes, I'm glad that it brought up some childhood memories for you with balancing monkeys on a tree. All right. And then it was Monkey Around. There we go. Awesome. So you were able to find out the game. Any thoughts on coconuts? Have you tried this? Have you heard of it? You say you haven't heard of it at all.
Never tried it, but it sounds like an absolute blast.
You want to know the funniest thing about this is this game is produced by Mayfair Games, and Mayfair Games they made one of the crokinole tables that we started learning how to play on. And that's where I originally found out about this game, was through Mayfair. And then it started to show up everywhere. I saw Jamie Stegmaier from Stonemaier Games talking about how Coconuts was one of his favorite filler games. And I was like, oh my God, it's not just me. It's like, okay, this game is actually good. That's cool. Like, I'm glad that we're vibing on this thing. And it just kept on popping up, that this game just became so enticing. And you can play with like conjoined maps where you can play like up to 8 people. So you can scale it up from dual modes. So much fun. I love Coconuts. Excellent.
That's cool. That's cool.
So that's my number one. That is Coconuts.
Good
now,
choice.
Before we close off, Devon, any honorable mentions, anything that you thought of while we were streaming that you're like, aha, that's one that I got to mention for sure?
Ooh, let's see. Honorable mentions. Games that I play with Avery. King of Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. King of Tokyo. Air, Land, and Sea.
I really enjoy Camel Up. That's one that I go to a lot with kids. They just love the pushing as much as possible. It's one of those things where you live the dream again, where you're trying to get to those crazy, impossible odds, but somehow it works. Oh my gosh, it's awesome.
Cover Your Assets by Grandpa Beck's Games is a good one.
They made a cookie version of that recently. That's based on crumble cookies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's this bright pink box and everything.
Nice. I need to buy coconuts now. I've decided that I need to get coconuts.
It's good. If you take anything from the stream, it's buy coconuts. And if you want to give it a try out Marvel United. But there are several games here. And out of all these games, what do you think would play best with the youngest audience? And which game would you play best with the oldest audience?
Coconuts with the youngest, because it's like infectious, even if you don't like care about the like the end game condition. Like just your turn, what you do on your turn is fun. And then probably with the oldest, I would say maybe Dice Throne.
I could see that.
Out of all the ones that we've said.
Especially with all the customization throughout it, with like upgrading your skills and understanding the relationships and all the nuances of your different powers and abilities. So I can definitely see that. All right. So with that, I think that closes out our thoughts and our streams. I do want to quickly mention, make sure that you are subscribed over at Devon's channel at Devon Talks Tabletop. Thank you so much for being here, Devon.
I haven't been super active in the last like 3 months.
That's okay. It's new job. It totally makes sense. Not a big deal. What's something that you are excited for? Just once again, a reminder, people.
Something that I'm excited for is this is not kid related at all, but 2 things. Mythic Mischief Volume 2 just launched today. And that is a game that I actually intend to teach Avery soon because it has a very, very high skill ceiling, but then also can still be played at a lower skill ceiling. So I've backed that. I'm super excited. I love the team over at IV. So Mythic Mischief Volume 2. And then also just got announced the new Go On Board game for The Witcher, Path of Destiny, which I had the opportunity to play at Gen Con and absolutely loved it. So
that's so good to hear. Have you played the one that just came out? Does it have any like relationship?
The Old World?
Mm-hmm.
I have played Old World once recently, back in June, and I liked it. I played it in a suboptimal way. Like there were a bunch of us that were wanting to learn, and so we played it a 3-player game in teams of 2. So there were 6 of us. It was not the way to play that game, but it was good to learn it. And I liked it. I like exploration games, but I have so many campaign and exploration games that I like want to get back to that it's not, I don't know how high it would rank on like my desire to engage with it. Like I want to get back into Oathsworn. I want to get back into Chronicles of Drunagor. I have Vampire the Masquerade chapters. So I don't know if it would get a lot of table time, but Path of Destiny has really interesting card playing mechanics that just fit well into like exploring the narrative of The Witcher. So I think out of their 2 games, it's the one that I identify with the most. So I'm super excited to hear more about it.
That's good to know. I like both of those styles. So I love going on these big epic campaigns. I like the cooperative version of Witcher a lot. I like how it like overlaps the turn, so less downtime, but you're still playing through that engaging process. And the fact that this is more like a card play centric version of this style, that's extremely exciting to me. So I'm following it. I saw the email today and I was like, yes, let's do it.
Yep. So
and one last
excited
thing
about both of those.
One last thing before we wrap up, make sure if you would like to support the channel in a different way, you can work with our channel partner here for this video. This is Into the AM. Use coupon code SideGame Strong for 10% off your order, and we do get kickback for this if you do decide to support the channel this way. Links in the description below for everything that we talked about in this video. I'll make sure to put some timestamps as well as give descriptions of the links so you can get games that we mentioned here as well if they do have them available on Amazon. So I'll make sure to put those there as well. But with that being said, thank you so much for being here, Devon, and
thanks for having me.
Audience, commenters, thank you so much for being here. Netanel, Grunge Life, Devon, of course, Shreb Me, John, thank you all for being here and engaging in the discussion. Ruben, this has been a wonderful time. Love getting to catch up with you, Devon, and just chat tabletop games, and looking forward to talking more about potentially Star Wars Rebellion after this. Sweet. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. SideGame Strong, y'all.
See you guys.